Welcome back to Get the Check. This week we have Emir Karabeg on the pod with us. He is the co-founder and CEO of Sim Studio that was recently a part of YC's Spring 25 batch. They were also on TechCrunch's top startups investors are talking about, so we're excited to debrief YC Demo Day, talk more about Sim Studio, and hear more about Emir's backstory because there's some crazy lore. Let's get into it. Wait, okay, we have to hear the story. How did you lose $1 billion?
Okay, so I wasn't a part of the founding team, but I was just like a contractor. This was my sophomore year of Berkeley. I had just started getting into web development and I wanted to like just make some money on the side. So then on the side of school, I was just programming for like a couple companies. One of them happened to be this like DeFi startup that like came out of Berkeley. And they were like super popular at the time and they raised like a bunch of money from like the top crypto VCs.
What was the name?
Yeah, so I guess I can say it because it's not really a thing anymore, but it was called Yeti Finance. So they had raised a bunch of money, and then how this works is sort of like a crypto bank where like people put their money in the bank and then, you can get interest off of it, but it's all just crypto based. People had staked in their bank around like $980 million.
Oh my God.
And then right after they launched their protocol, and then 2 weeks after that was when the whole SBF thing happened, or I think it was the Terra Luna. I forget which one came first. But then it went from like 980 million to like 30 million in the matter, or like 50 million in the matter of like a week or something.
That's crazy.
So like everyone for a second thought they were like millionaires, and then it just like completely wiped away.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Did you see their crash outs?
It was a big crash out. Yeah. It was pretty ugly after that.
Damn.
Like,
did they just like shut down?
It was just like a bunch of, because people were promised like certain things and then I'm like completely uninvolved. I don't even know if there's still like
You're just a contractor.
Yeah, I was a contractor. I was like, I didn't really care, but I knew there were like lawsuits and stuff happening.
Were you involved in crypto before that too, or was that kind of like your first big crypto thing?
Yeah, I don't really like to admit it, but that's like really where I got my start in like in like 2016 actually. It's kind of random, but I used to just build PCs. I used to be like a semi-professional League of Legends player.
Oh, no way. Wait, what was your rank?
I was challenger in like the early days, like right after they dropped the ELO and they set the ranking system. And then I even played on a team semi-professionally. And so like I just needed a really good computer.
Yeah.
So I would buy these GPUs and like I would just get them from eBay or something. And at the time they were super cheap. This is like 2014, 2015. GPUs were like $200.
So you were like 12?
Yeah, in 2014 I was 12. And then it just so happened that like out of nowhere, I was trying to buy these GPUs on eBay and they were super expensive all of a sudden.
Because of crypto, they started getting expensive?
Yeah, because of crypto.
Because people were like using them to mine crypto.
Yeah, and then
So then did you start mining
Yeah,
crypto?
exactly. So I realized like, oh shit, like people are buying it because it's like really lucrative. And at that time, you could put together like 6 GPUs and you would make like 200 a day.
No way.
From like one miner. And then like one thing led to another. I had like 150 miners like sitting in a warehouse in Bosnia.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
How did we just like jump there?
Wait, what do you mean
context we're missing? There's crucial context we're missing as part of this story.
What?
I mean, pretty much I realized that this was super lucrative.
At 12 years old?
I guess I was like 14. So this is like 20...
Okay, so you're a year deep into this.
Yeah, I'm like probably a year deep into this. So actually first how it started is I had 2 miners in my garage. Well, originally I was buying and I was making PCs, but then PCs got really expensive just because of the GPU. So like all the other components of a PC was like maybe like $500 or like $400. And then the GPU itself was like $2,000. And so I started realizing people are selling these computers, these setups for like way more than it was before. So I was like, oh, I want to start selling them. And then I realized like it wasn't the computer people were buying, it was the GPU, which I didn't realize at the time. Then once I did, I was like, okay, I better keep on.
Your 13-year-old self came to the right conclusion.
I was like, I better hold on to the GPUs. And then so I made 2 miners and I put them like in the garage, but we didn't have enough energy requirements to like put more than 2 just because they...
Like Irvine regulation.
Like just regulations, yeah.
Were
like,
your parents like,
wow.
what is going on?
My parents are like immigrants and they had no idea what was happening. Like they just thought I was like, I don't know, it was the summertime and they were like just doing something. And it was so hot in there. That's like the one thing I really like distinctly remember. It was like probably 120 degrees in my garage.
Whoa.
It was so hot.
Oh, wow.
Because they would get so hot because of the electricity requirement and they would just like dispense like a ton of heat. But anyway, I had 2. I hooked up the 3rd one and then like my circuit breaker cut because like I didn't have enough power. I didn't even know that was a thing. Like circuits or like electricity needs. Like I had no idea. And so my dad was like, what are you doing with this? So I told him the whole thing. And then he had a friend from Bosnia who ran a chem lab. And he was like, oh, we can put like up to 10 there.
Oh.
And it was like the cheapest electricity in all of Irvine, which was like commercial zoning, which is still like pretty expensive, but it was like better than my residential zoning. And so we put like 10 there, and then I wanted more than 10. And then we were like, okay, if we want to turn this into like a serious operation, it just like how it works is pretty much the more miners are connected to the network, the less you earn. So I realized there was a window of opportunity before everyone realized this is like crazy lucrative, where like everyone's going to join in. And so we're like, let's move it to Nevada, where there was like the cheapest electricity in the country.
Did you have anyone else working with you on this at this point, or was it still just you?
No, so it was actually, so I had the idea, but I obviously didn't have any money. And then I asked my parents for money, and they thought it was a lot of money. So then,
How much money did you ask your parents for?
so originally I wanted like 10 grand. But then I was like, this is such a massive opportunity. Let's get like 100 grand.
So you went to your parents and asked for 100 grand?
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously they were like, hell no. But I was like, oh, this makes so much money. Like, why don't we just scale this thing like immediately?
Yeah.
You could earn your money back literally in 10 days. If you think about it, because it
that's
costs
insane.
a $2,000 for the setup, and you would return 200 a day.
Yeah.
So literally, the return on investment was 10 days. I don't know any asset that returns that much money, like
Yeah.
ever in history.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, obviously this is like a gold rush, and my dad was like, you're insane. But that guy who ran the chem lab, I convinced him actually. Who's another Bosnian guy who's a family friend.
That's crazy.
And he was really sweet, so he actually gave me the money.
He gave you 100K.
Yeah, and then but he took like the whole company. He kept me like 5%. Because he was like,
But if your parents had just given you the 100K.
no, I think they chipped in like a little bit too, but it wasn't like anything significant.
So it was between like you, your parents, and this Bosnian guy.
Yeah, exactly.
So where did it go?
Yeah, so then we had 10 in this chem lab, and then I realized we wanted to put a lot more. So we were first trying to bring it to Reno, but even just to get hooked up to the grid, it cost like 150K. And so funny enough, I started then Googling like where has the cheapest electricity, not just in the United States, but in the world. And it was in Bosnia and
It brought
Herzegovina.
you back home.
And I was like, oh wow,
Such a full circle moment.
And then that December, we flew to Bosnia, and then we sent all the miners. Also, conveniently, we were purchasing them from China, and
So it's closer, honestly.
and also for whatever reason, China and Bosnia didn't have like any tariffs. So it was actually way cheaper to send it to Bosnia than it was in the United States, even at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess like why would China tariff Bosnia?
Yeah, I mean, like we're not even like there's like
That's
nothing.
just mean.
We're not even like producing anything. I probably had like the largest income order from like China ever to Bosnia.
That's so funny. That's crazy.
Yeah, anyway, so we went there, and that's a whole nother story. We ended up in the MI6 building because they were the only one that had like the grid requirements. Or actually, we ended up in the British Embassy. And then the MI6 ended up raiding us later because we were heating the whole building up. That's like a whole nother story.
Wait, how did you get the British embassy to let you?
So we were trying to find a space to put all 150 miners because they're
Wow, that's an
also
insane amount.
they're also so hot
Yeah.
that like you need a place that's gonna like accommodate this much space, this much noise,
Yeah.
the heat, the electricity requirements. The only place we could find was the British Embassy, which had a basement that used to be a wartime basement while like during the war.
Yeah.
You know, like Bosnians would hide in this embassy in the basement, and it was like fully like nuclear proof pretty much. And it was the only place that could house, like, because it had all the requirements that we needed. So we put all of our miners there. But the thing is, it was so hot that it traveled through the vents and it heated the entire embassy building. And the Brits that were in the building thought that there was like a chemical attack happening.
Wait,
way.
this is like the pepper spray in butter.
We can't be comparing 150 miners to you at the club getting pepper sprayed.
No, because like once I got pepper sprayed at the club, I didn't do anything.
Wait, what happened?
No, this like
Yeah, how'd you get pepper sprayed?
this guy was like really drunk and he picked it up and he thought it was a vape, and I was like trying to tell him like, yo, it's not a vape, but he like was too drunk and he just pepper sprayed into the crowd. of butter, like the club, people just started like choking, and they thought it was like an attack because no one knew. Like it spreads through the air, but you don't know that it's pepper spray.
Oh shit.
Anyways, it was a similar thing where like no, in the sense of like no one, like it's like if your eye starts stinging or you're really hot and you don't, it seems like it's like a chemical attack.
Right.
So that was the same thing. Like people thought they were getting like attacked.
So back to the Brits in the embassy.
The Brits in the embassy. Yeah, I mean, so we definitely had to move out. It actually sounds like a completely made-up story, but it's entirely true.
So
Like,
you
So
got
you guys
raided
were
by
making,
MI6?
so
like,
I mean, well, we were in the
100
United States, and we just had people like
manning
like
the sister-
friends
yeah,
who
yeah.
we call to check on the servers every now and
Yeah.
then, make sure like stuff was running, like plug stuff.
But you'd
in.
rented out the space.
Yeah, we rented it out from them.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
not like you were doing anything.
No, it was completely
Yeah.
legal. Like they knew we were
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
The
Yeah.
problem is the building got so hot, and they couldn't understand why.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And they thought it was a chemical attack, so they put it into their system, and they called MI6, and they showed up, and they were like investigating, and they found our
bunch of
miners in the
miners.
basement, and they're like, "This is why it's like
MI6
200
is-
degrees in here."
This is a good idea.
Oh my. So did you
Wait.
have to move out?
Oh yeah, we moved out like the next day.
Where'd you go?
We went to this there was like an old factory that had been like blown up during the war. And so there were all these like natural bullet holes and like bomb holes that like were like natural air like cooling. So we just stored it in there. It was like an old Volkswagen factory or something.
Oh my god, this story, like
story's
every time I think it
crazy.
can't get crazier, it does.
Yeah.
It's actually insane.
That's
Quite
like
normal.
a lot of
What
money,
happened to
'cause
this
if you have like
company?
150 and they're each making 200 a day.
Yeah. I mean, at that time, the difficulty had gone up way like more. So it was way less profitable. Yeah. So I think the investment total was like maybe 150 to like 300 grand. So pretty much like we had mined 2 million and we sold it at that point whenever Bitcoin was, which I think was like around like the
God, what
Wait,
if
so you had 2
kept
million
it?
in
Yeah.
Bitcoin and like
yeah. So actually we kept it up until it was around like 40K. So
Oh,
we didn't
wow.
sell it at the initial drop. We actually kept it during that dead period when we went from like 20K I think all the way down to like 5.
Oh wow.
Everyone thought it was like dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it went back to 40 and I think we sold it around 40.
What made you finally shut down?
It became unprofitable to mine. Like we literally lost money on electricity just running the miners.
wow.
It's like, do we keep them going in the hopes that it becomes more lucrative later?
Yeah.
Or do we shut it down now? And this was in 2020.
Yeah.
So this is like 4 years later.
Yeah.
Oh, so you had it running for
We
that
had it running
long.
the whole time.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So you've always been an entrepreneur.
Yeah. I mean, I guess if you can call it that. It was kind of a random project.
Random League of Legends project, just trying to play video games, turns into a $2 million operation.
That's crazy. And then you went to Berkeley. I know you mentioned that you dropped out for a semester.
Yeah,
When
well, I
did you
thought
do
I was
that?
going to drop out. And then,
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so also for context, like, because of the war, my parents never finished school. So, like, I came from, like, a refugee, like, background where, like, no one finished school. And now I'm going to Berkeley. So the whole thing is, like, I'm expected to, like, graduate, right?
Yeah.
But this really interesting thing happened where, so after actually that whole thing happened with the crypto, like,
Yeah.
DeFi, there was a guy named Olaf Carlson-Wee, who was the first employee at Coinbase in like 2009.
Oh, whoa.
And he was paid his salary exclusively in Bitcoin from like 2009 until like 2014 or 15.
Wow.
Oh wow.
And then he left to start this fund called Polychain, which
Oh,
is like
yeah.
the biggest
Yeah.
like crypto fund in the world. So anyway, it was December. So this is 2022, and like I think ChatGPT releases on November 30th of 2022, and then probably a week after that, I get a call from like one of my friends, and he was like, "Oh, someone wants to talk to you." Kind of like mysterious. And so I was like, "Okay, yeah, sure, like I'm down." I was always down for any project, like any way to make money or just like hustle or like I don't know, do something. I was down for. So I got on a call with this guy, and he's like, "Oh, tell me your background." So I just showed him like my portfolio and like some stuff I worked on. And he was like, "Okay, this looks good." Then he sent me to another guy. He's like, "Okay, like I think you sound good. Like I'll pass you on to another guy." So I get on the third call, and then it's this guy, Olaf Carlson-Wee.
Wow.
He's like, "Oh, like AI is going to be the future." I mean, granted, this is like 2 weeks after ChatGPT releases, and he was like, "Yeah, AI is going to change everything, and I want to build a company in AI." And he's like, "So I want, I'm interviewing like 100 people over the next week, and we're trying to find like someone to work with." And I was like, "Okay." And it was during finals week, so I was like, "Oh, I don't really care. Like, this is probably not going to work out."
Yeah.
And then I remember like I was sitting in my room and I was taking a data ethics final, I think, and it was online.
Wait, which data ethics class did you take?
I think there's only one data ethics
Is it
class.
194?
I've basically taken it too.
I think it's like 104 or
I
something.
wrote that final
Yes,
essay
it was
for like
C104.
3 people.
Yeah, C104.
It was C104.
C104.
I remember because I took that class and I wrote my essay on Palantir.
I've basically taken that class because I've written that essay for 3 people. It's so
We're
funny.
just
I
not
feel
gonna
like,
name the 3 people.
yeah. No, I feel like in Berkeley, like whenever a data science or like computer science major had to take their data ethics final, they'd come ask me to write it, and I was
Yeah.
like, "This is what's wrong with society." It's like the one ethics class they have to take, and they're like, "This is too much for me to think about."
It's so funny. Ironically, that was my lowest grade in Berkeley ever.
No, they were really struggling.
Like of any
I
class I
know.
took, I had the worst grade in that class.
No, I know, because one of my best friends in college like sent me her outline, and she was like, "Can you like give me feedback?" I deleted the whole thing, and
Yeah.
I was like, "I'll just start over."
I was taking the final. It was online, and then I get a call
In the middle of your final.
in the middle of my final. Like it comes up, and I recognize it from that number. So I literally just submit the final, like right there. It was like 20 minutes in the final.
So that's why it was your lowest
yeah,
grade.
I mean, I didn't really care. And so I picked up the phone, and he was like, "Oh, can you come to Oakland tomorrow to our office?" I was like, "Oh yeah, let's do it. I'm down." So I show up at the office, and it's this guy Olaf and one other guy named Brug, and they're like, "Oh, for all of winter break, we're gonna bring in like a bunch of kids from Stanford and Berkeley, and we're gonna like hack for like this break and like have this like new groundbreaking project." And I was like, "Okay, yeah, let's do it." It was pretty much like 9 guys from Stanford and me, and 1 guy from Berkeley.
Diversity higher.
Diversity.
Yeah, I'm not sure how I snuck in there. So I started on that project, and then we worked like all of winter break, like a month and a half. And then at the end, they were like, "Oh, all of the Stanford kids are gonna like, we don't." I don't know if it was like a mutual thing or like they didn't want them, but they were like, "Oh, you're the only person left." And they're like, "From here on out, it's like just gonna be you, and like you can
You
figure
and
it
me."
out." Yeah.
Did
and
you
it was-
ever ask the Stanford kids what happened?
Yeah, I'm actually not really sure. Like the whole thing is a little bit gray area, to be honest. But it was, I mean, we were literally in this guy's old apartment in Oakland, which was like a $4 million
It was
flat.
too scrappy
No.
for the Stanford
There was like a
kids.
sauna. They hired like chefs that were like cooking in the kitchen.
Wow.
And there was really
That's
just like
kinda sick.
us kids, and we were just sitting there. It was kind of a wild experience.
That is crazy.
I mean, fast forward like a couple months, there was like 300,000 people using the application. It was one of the first like popular GPT rappers. We gave away like 10 Teslas with like iShowSpeed and David
Oh, I
Dobrik.
remember seeing that on your
Oh,
Instagram.
I remember seeing that too and being
Yeah.
like, Emir knows David Dobrik? Like, I know someone that knows David Dobrik.
Did you meet David Dobrik?
I think only on like FaceTime a couple. Like,
That's
maybe
so
once or
funny.
twice. I never even really met him. But yeah. Anyway, so I kind of dropped out for that semester, and I didn't think I was going to go back to school. So we went from like 0 to like 300,000 people using the application. And then like summer came, and then like no one was using it.
Oh, because it was for like education.
It was for students to write their essays.
That's what
What's
I
it
needed.
called?
It was called Work Ninja.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I've definitely heard of it.
Yeah. I think it was like right after we had already graduated because it was 2022.
2023 spring.
Okay. Yeah.
Is it still a thing?
I think it's still running. It's actually kind of funny. Like I remember being in class at that time.
Yeah.
And I was in like an English class, and I was like sitting next to some girl, and she had Work Ninja open, and she was writing her essay. I was like, this is kind of funny.
That's so funny.
Yeah,
You were
yeah.
like, you're welcome.
Yeah. I mean, no one had any idea, but
So
yeah.
what made you go back to school?
Well, it was just kind of a failed project. I think at that time it was unobvious that ChatGPT was going to be an application. Everyone thought it was more of just an interface with their API, and then OpenAI was just going to be like an infrastructure company.
Yeah.
Or that's actually what it was.
That is how I thought of it. Yeah.
That
Yeah.
was its intention. So like everyone thought that we're going to build applications on top of the API,
yeah.
Right.
and actually not. Like
They're
were just
not gonna be the ones
They're
that
not going
do
to be.
it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And at that time, like GPT 3.5 was like incredibly stupid. Like
Yeah.
you would say like, write me a 500-word essay on The Great Gatsby, and it would return like a haiku. So we were doing like all these things like chain of thought prompting and like citations really before like Perplexity or like before chain of thought was a thing. I know Perplexity was around for like a while,
Yeah.
but before it was popular. And so we would say like, write a 1,000-word essay on The Great Gatsby. It would include like citations. It would be plagiarism free. So it would like check with like sources online. It was actually like a great tool.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
But so as soon as like OpenAI drops the next model, though, all that work goes to waste.
Exactly.
Oh wow.
So what we didn't realize was that ChatGPT was going to be what it is
Yeah.
Is
today.
yeah.
And so we were just like banking on the fact that they're just going to release models, and we're going to use these models. So it was actually like a super popular tool. especially for the plagiarism free part, because we were kind of banking on, I mean, it sounds bad, but like the students who are like 5 minutes before the deadline, they're trying to write the essay, you know what I mean? And so, yeah, I
feel
think
like that's not a small percent of like Berkeley students.
yeah, it's probably like the majority of students actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. I thought he was going to be like, yeah, I dropped out of like Berkeley for a semester and just like, you know, built a small app and then went back and guy built like a 300K.
Yeah, I've definitely had like the wackiest startup experience ever. Like from being rated
You
to
should
MI.
like write a book or something.
Yeah, I think from getting rated by MI6 all the way to like 10 Teslas with David Dobrik and ISO speed, I think it's like actually like a pretty linear trajectory. I think if you start off there, you're probably gonna end up where I was. But it was a kind of big failed project. But honestly, like everything was just massive learning for me.
Yeah.
I never took anything as like I expected something out of it. I always just did it out of like pure love and fun.
Yeah, not like the Stanford kids.
Yeah. So that was actually something that was really interesting to me. Is like the Stanford kids were purely about like the optics around it.
Yeah.
I was actually more interested in the tech
Yeah.
and like how it actually gets built.
Yeah.
And I think they were more interested in like this high profile guy who's like on this project.
That
That's a
makes
whole nother thing. And like a ton of us ended up not being paid. And there was like
Oh,
this whole
wow.
thing.
Including you.
Yeah.
You never got paid for your entire
I got
time,
paid.
right?
So we were supposed to get paid like 150K. I mean, granted, we were literally in school at the time.
Yeah,
So it was
yeah.
like an insane number for us. But I think I missed out on like 70K probably.
Oh my God.
Wow.
But it's all good, honestly. Like it was a fun time. Like I was just down
You're
to
like, I got
learn.
a FaceTime with David Dobrik. It's okay.
Like it was
Well,
honestly,
where's your Tesla?
yeah, I definitely missed out. It's funny.
He just got
You
the
owe me
30K.
2.1 Teslas.
because I mean, when you're working with these guys who are such high profile, you kind of don't expect that
Yeah.
you're gonna miss out on some payments.
Yeah.
And I think towards the end, I was like, and we were just grinding, so I wasn't like looking at my bank account like how
Yeah.
much money
You're
did
not
I get
tracking
in.
paychecks.
I'm not tracking.
That's
it.
also like a weird thing to
Yeah.
do.
Yeah. I feel like you trust that the person you're going into
Oh,
work
yeah.
for every single day
Oh, yeah,
is
for sure.
also going to be paying you.
For sure. And
Yeah.
also like no hate towards like Olaf. Like he's actually like a great friend. And like I love him.
Are you guys still friends? You just
Oh
don't-
yeah, like we still talk. And
You just don't talk about the 70K.
That you missed out on.
I don't think it was much of his doing. I think it was more of the other one, like the other guy who was involved. Actually, like I had a friend that literally missed out on like over 200K.
Oh wow.
Wow.
Okay, so shifting gears a little bit, YC Demo Day was last week, and we
Yeah.
wanted to hear more about your experience. We'll go into like your whole YC experience too, but how was Demo Day? How was being there?
Yeah, demo day was actually kind of crazy. It was pretty chaotic, and the space definitely didn't accommodate as many people as that like showed up.
Yeah.
Can the public go to YC Demo Day? No, right?
Only investors can show up.
Okay.
So only if you've invested in a YC company can you show up at demo day.
Where was our invite to the friends and family round?
So we had closed our round like pretty early, actually, like 2 weeks prior. And so we had like hundreds of people that came up to
Congrats.
us. Yeah, thank you. And then we had 100 people that came up to us and were like, oh, like we want to invest, blah, blah, blah. And it was kind of awkward for us because we really couldn't take any more money.
That's such a hard problem to have.
Yeah.
Well, that's what they say about demo days these times. It's like by the time you make it to demo day, it's all just like a showcase because like the best pick, they've all been picked by then.
So probably a third of the batch closes their round before demo day.
Okay.
And then a third closes on demo day and a third after demo day.
That's like crazy.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
We actually have a resident YC Demo Day attendee over here.
You were at demo day?
I went when I was 12.
Really?
While you were mining Bitcoin, while I was at Demo
That's
Day.
actually much
If
cooler.
only you guys knew each other then, you could have raised your 100K a lot faster.
That's true.
I would
didn't
have given
to-
you the plug.
I didn't have to
Yeah.
take you to my family friend.
Yeah, my dad did YC when I was like really young.
No way.
Yeah, and
That's so cool.
So he just like let me come one day because I was like, I really want to know like what you guys do, and he was like, okay, sure. So he like messaged Jessica and was like, can my daughter come? And she was like, we don't really have people come because it's like this elusive thing.
Yeah.
And then he goes, she's 12. Like, what is she gonna do? And so then they let me in.
What year was that?
This must have been like 2012
2012.
or like maybe 2013 or something.
That's
like
really
that.
interesting.
Yeah.
And it was your dad. Is your dad still working on that company or is it?
No, he sold it to Amazon. Worked at Amazon. Is now starting a new thing.
That's
So,
awesome.
Yeah.
That's super cool. Yeah, I feel like the Bay Area is full of those stories. Like
Yeah.
in SoCal, I feel like it's like the only people that get rich are like in like real estate or something. Like, I
Yeah,
don't know.
or
Like,
they're in like random things like carpeting or like
Yeah.
drapes. Like I feel like there's so many people that have
Like cash flow businesses.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, like we went to high school with someone who literally invented Hot Pockets.
I know.
Crazy.
And they're like
No way.
billionaires. So it's like those are like our icons.
Oh,
and
because
then
because they moved to SoCal because the money's there. Oh.
I don't even
No,
think
I
if
don't
that's
think it's
why.
that.
I think
Yeah.
SoCal is just like an attractive place to live.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there aren't tech companies there.
Even
what
in
I'm saying,
like
is, like-
Minnesota, like the guy that started like Talenti's kid went to my school, like the gelato.
No way.
Yeah,
I love
wait, that's it's
Talenti.
Dean Phillips. It's the same guy that ran for president after. Like I fully know him. We know who it is. Yeah, it's the same dude. Yeah.
Wait, how did I not know this?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you're a demo day OG then. It's funny because there's some YC classes that are like especially
Famous.
good.
Oh.
They're like famous. I think I want to say it was winter 2012 was a good one.
Do you think spring 2025 is going in that?
Yeah, I definitely think so.
Oh,
my God,
really?
that's exciting.
I mean,
Oh,
it's
that's
it's hard to say. Like, I mean, the thing is about YC. What's so fun is like, you never know who's gonna make it. It's like truly surprising. Like I remember on the first day of YC, it's like a whole day event where you come in and they share stories. And my partner's Dalton, and he was sharing the story about like, you know, there was this guy. He was really nice, and he had this company that was like a group Tinder. It was like a dating app, but like you go in a group instead of like a one-on-one date. I don't even know what the concept.
That's what we need. Literally, Priya and I all the time are like, we don't go on dates, but we would if we could go with each other.
Yeah.
But did it turn into something else? The app.
Okay, so yeah, so he started that group Tinder app, and Dalton was like, yeah, he was working on it for like 4 years. He was a super nice guy, but the company wasn't going anywhere.
Yeah.
And then in 2016, he was like, fuck it, AI is going to be a big thing. And like, that's the co-founder of Anthropic. So it's like,
2016?
yeah. And then, and I think he went
That's
to go
crazy.
first work at OpenAI, and then he left and he started Anthropic. But yeah, I mean, literally like, you hear all these stories, and it was like, and then he was like, oh, there's these two guys that came in, and they were building VR headsets that were powered by like a mobile phone. And then 2 weeks before demo day, they're like, our idea blows. We need a transition. And they built a bank, and that bank was Brex. And there's like all these crazy stories of like companies that were like 2-3 years old and then pivoted and are now like, you know, companies that everyone would know
Everyone
about.
knows about.
So it's just kind of funny because you honestly never know. It's kind of just about like longevity. Who's gonna stick it out? Your like success on demo day is not correlated with like how successful your company is gonna be.
Yeah.
The problem is I've heard that so many times, and our company was really successful. So I like,
So you're like,
I hope we remain disciplined and like actually end up being successful. But all the stories we hear were like, oh, all these companies like DoorDash didn't even raise on demo day. And,
Yeah.
like,
Oh, really?
and there's like all these stories of like Coinbase raised like 1 mil at like a 5 mil cap or something, or just like all these crazy stories. And then it's like all these hot companies, you would never know about it. And then it was kind of awkward because
You did too well. And now
I feel like if we did worse, it would be better. But yeah.
No, I think that's a good spot to be in.
Yeah, I feel like that's also kind of just like founders' willingness to follow the trends and pivot and like not be too attached to their idea. Because I feel like I hear about that a lot of like people. There's like a balance between like really believing in your idea and like what you're doing, but then also being like open-minded enough.
Yeah, I think the thing that I heard from Brian Chesky that I really like was that it's an important balance because you can give up too early. And that's something that founders do a lot of like, they might have something that actually might be successful, but it's really just like things just compound over time. So if you work on it for 10 years, in my belief is that like, no matter what you're working on, it's going to be successul. You just have to put in the numbers. Put in the reps and like put in the hours into your company.
It's good
That's
to
what
hear
we-
for our
I know. I was literally thinking, I was like, I need this right now.
No, I think it's true though, because it's like I feel like starting a podcast, it's like obviously different, but like when I look at like the podcast that like we look up to, and then you like see when they like, I feel like all have heard of them in the last year or two, and I'm like, oh, this is a sick podcast, and then I look at their first posting and it's like 7 years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm like, whoa, like they definitely just like kept doing it.
Yeah, you know, you guys are onto something 100%. Like you guys are like, I feel like very amicable and like fun. And like you guys have obviously a legit setup here. So I feel like, yeah, it's just like over time, it's going to like compound the effects of, you know, your guys' network, and it's going to come back to you. And I think, yeah, that's something that Brian Chesky said. He was like, So long as you believe that it's going to go somewhere, and it doesn't have to be blind faith, but it can be sort of just like you believe that there's going to exist a world that maybe like is not the world we live in today, but that like your company is going to be successful at that point, given like some assumptions that you can make about the world and like where it's going to end up.
I get what you're saying. Like sometimes it's just like, yeah, there's so many things where people have like even like delusional faith. Like I feel like founders say that all the time.
Yeah.
You have to be a little delulu to be a founder.
Yeah, for sure.
Whenever I work with our founders, I'm always like, you're so fucking delulu. But then I'm like, oh, this is why you are the founder.
I mean, it's actually like it's a crazy concept, right? Like we started our company in January of this year.
Yeah.
And like, okay, so your company is Sim Studio, and then do you want to give like a quick blurb on what you do, and then?
Yeah, it's an open source platform to build AI agents.
Okay.
Pretty much in any vertical. It's like a completely horizontal platform.
And who's like the target user for your company?
Mostly developers that are building agents for like some production application. Yeah, so whether that be like in tech or in like wealth management or in like legal services or like whatever, whoever's building agents can do it inside of Sim Studio.
Is it like specific kind of agents that most of the users are building, or is it just like generally AI agents?
It's actually like wildly different use cases.
Okay.
That's like the number one question we get.
Really?
Is like, who's your ICP? Or like, I mean, our ICP is like developers or like, I don't know, like a PM at some company. But you know, like the people that are using it is like everyone from like the Department of Defense all the way to like some guy shit posting on Twitter. They're like all happening in Sim Studio. So it's kind of wild to actually
That's really
see.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to ask, like, because AI is moving so fast, we actually just did an entire like ERD review about like what agent platform we would use.
Yeah.
And we ended up on like OpenAI's like agents SDK or whatever. Like, why would you use SimStudio over that? And like, why would a developer commit to yours, basically?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So the SDK is like, so ours is like a drag and drop interface. It's sort of like Figma. And an SDK is like something that lives in your code base. So they're sort of fundamentally different.
Yeah.
But I think the end result is the same, which is like you have some LLM that works in production. There were a couple assumptions that we made early on. And one of them was like developers are writing less and less code. Like Cursor is pretty much generating like entire code bases. And people understand less about their code base. So the code really no longer matters if you understand it or not. It just matters that it's functional.
Yeah. That's actually a very real concern, though. I feel like, especially for companies that have large user bases, because it's like there's always going to be escalations. There's always going to be one-off things. And like Cursor isn't perfect. And so I think it's an interesting question as to like are we going to develop as we don't understand our code base? But that's a separate conversation.
No, for sure. That makes sense. I think right now it probably does like 90% of the work. And then the last 10% is like you actually need people who are smart and can do it.
Yeah.
That's actually a problem we've been having because we're open source. We hire a lot of people from our open source contributors. And the issue is like their PR looks like fantastic because like they made like comments and they like wrote tests and they like wrote the file. And then we'll get on a call with them and we'll ask them to explain their code and they have like literally no idea what's going on. It's just all Cursor generated. So it's actually really hard to filter out like who actually knows what they're talking about.
That makes sense.
Actually, how this whole company got started was I had just graduated Berkeley and Waleed was working at Amazon. He was at Ring. He was doing a lot of like back-end infra stuff. And I called him. He was like my best friend from Berkeley. And I called him. I was like, hey, you want to come to San Francisco and start a company? I was like, I have an idea for like an AI-powered CRM, like sales and marketing. He was like, yeah, fuck it, I'm in. He just like quit his job literally on the phone, flew to SF the next day, and then started living with me. And we built this like sales and marketing tool. And it was actually really good. Like someone's going to build that company. It's going to be $1 billion company. But we were just like, we know nothing about sales and marketing. And like, if we want to spend the next 10 years of our life on something, it's just not going to be in sales and marketing.
It's not this.
And like,
when was this?
This was like in last fall.
Okay.
So it started in September and then we closed it in like November. What we realized is like 95% of code we write for building agents is just like infra level stuff. Like communication between like one agent versus another, transforming responses, doing like retries, doing like integrations, authentication, deployments, like all this shit that developers have to do but don't really care about. And that doesn't actually affect your system. Like it's just things that you have to do, but it's not necessarily impacting, you know, how your application works in production. So we're like, why don't we build just a purely visual solution where all you can edit are the things that really matters, like your agent system prompt, the tools it has access to. And then, what we realize is like, if you just abstract away all the shit that people don't like doing and you just expose the things that people like doing, then they can get to production in like minutes rather than like a couple weeks.
Yeah.
So what we saw is like, for people that use Sim Studio, you can literally like build an agent in like 30 seconds and deploy it as an API and use it in your platform. Versus if you use an SDK, you have to write the code. Yeah. You have to write the deployment. Yeah. You have to deploy it somewhere. It has to be hosted somewhere. So you have to figure that out. Then if it doesn't work, then you have to go back into the code and like edit things. Versus this, you can just like kind of visualize it and then see how things are connected and then be really easy to like edit it. So I guess like that's the value prop.
Would you say it's like more useful for prototyping, or have you also seen it in large scale production cases?
Yeah, I think for both is good. Definitely for like a quick gut check, it's good for prototyping because agents are non-deterministic. Yeah. So you need to test like how they work for certain like use cases. So it's good for prototyping. And then there's a bunch of people that deploy with us as well. We work with like a bunch of enterprise customers.
Wow. Can you say how many?
Yeah, like in the developers, we're in like the few thousand.
Cool. Nice.
Yeah.
I know you said like there's like all types of use cases. I'm just wondering like what like one example of one would be that's like really common.
So a really common is like a deep research workflow.
Okay.
So for instance, like I want to look up someone online and I want like all their background. Okay. Like I want their LinkedIn. I want to see if they were like featured in any blog or like article or whatever. So it's just an agent connected to like a whole bunch of people searching tools. And then you can just like sort of chat with it.
Are people doing a lot of like simulations? Because I know that's like in the name and I don't know if it's like related to the use cases or just like.
Yeah. There's actually like an interesting use case of like real world event simulations. So like having agents mock like people in the world and like seeing how they would interact. So that's actually the thing that like
Iran and like Israel or something.
Yeah, sure. I mean, maybe not like what's like the outcome of that event, but like if there's specific people and like based on like press releases or something or like information they have online, like simulate like what their behavior would be like.
Like, is it like you run multiple scenarios and then you like assign probabilities to like, let's say like two parties are negotiating. Like it's like we're renegotiating like a nuclear deal or something with Iran. It's like you mock up like what they'd say across like 100 scenarios.
Yeah. I mean, obviously that's like dependent on the data that you have access to.
Yeah.
So it's like more obvious for things that are more public.
Annika chooses like the most intense example. Like I was going to say Kanye and Taylor Swift.
He's been talking about, he said the DOD. So that's why I was thinking about that. It's not like just the first thing that came to my mind.
Yeah. It's actually like not far off though.
Yeah. You think the DOD gives a shit about Kanye and Taylor Swift? Who's going to simulate Kanye and Taylor Swift?
No, but I was just like, why are we going there
because he said the DOD and then he said real world events. What real world events do you think the DOD cares about?
Yeah, maybe I'll have to check the logs. Maybe there's some Kanye and Taylor Swift in there.
But that's kind of like, I don't know how much you're allowed to say, but like I didn't realize that like the DOD or like even other like I don't know, like government agencies work with like startups at like this stage. I guess it makes sense because it's like in this type of technology there aren't like that many like super established players.
I think there's like two things that happened. The first thing is that like Doge was like really big for startups because for instance like I had dinner with Guillermo from Vercel like 2 weeks ago, and people like when Doge started, they were using V0 to like vibe code like government websites and stuff. And he was like, this is great. But I mean, there was an awkward riff because you pretty much had people in government, which like the people who were there before Doge and then the people who came in after, which were like these 19-year-olds.
Yeah, it's also just like, I feel like it's also just like people's relationships because it's like in our college club, like one of them ended up going to Doge because like when we covered Doge on the podcast, we talked about that. And so I think that's like also part of it because it's like they know about the companies because that's like their frame of reference. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they're using like all the modern stack for like government applications. They're using like Supabase database and like vibe coding on V0 and like
and Lovable.
So it was great. Like I think, that was like really cool. And then of course like selling to them is very difficult. So like the second thing that was cool was like a lot of these contractors to the government, because it was Doge was like very in vogue and like just cutting expenses, they were also looking for startups as well to implement in like their solutions that they're selling to the government.
Oh, like because they were trying to propose alternatives to the status quo, so they like needed alternatives.
Yeah,
And then the startups will give them cheap contracts.
And it's also like,
too.
I feel like at your stage, like not even specifically you guys, but like at that stage, you're like willing to build for a customer with like a customer like that in mind as well, right? Which probably makes it easier.
yeah.
I don't know if that's true, but
It was kind of like something that people say early on is like you want to pick a domain and like just stick to that domain and just like be hyper focused on like that vertical. And because we're such a horizontal platform, I think that's definitely a struggle. Is like we always try and make sure that things we're building are for like that are going to benefit everyone that's using the platform. But the thing is, people use it for like wildly different things. So we have to make sure that what we're releasing actually like is beneficial for all of our enterprise customers and also the developers and the open source community. And like everyone sort of has to benefit from every new like release. And especially there was literally 2 of us up until like last week.
So you just hired 7 employees in the last week.
Yeah.
what area
can't
are
do
you
that.
mainly hiring in?
All devs.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you hired 5 software engineers.
Yeah.
How are you guys doing your sales? Is that like fully on you right now?
Yeah. It's actually like fully inbound. We have like no
Oh, wow.
outbound process.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Subtle flex.
Yeah. So I'm actually like, we're not planning to do outbound like ever.
Oh, wow.
That's crazy.
Yeah. I think it's actually like people waste so much of their time like thinking that they should like go and find customers where like really you should just like have
A product good enough.
a product that's good enough and also have like enough like thought leadership, I guess, on like X and
Thought
Reddit.
leadership.
I mean, it's the truth, right? Like you have to be
Yeah,
like
yeah,
very
yeah.
active because
Yeah, yeah.
you need to attract people somehow.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you have to have a sticky enough product that they stick around and then a good enough one that they can like actually share with their friends.
What's your thought on how founders now are just like rage baiting, like Cluely and stuff? Like,
Yeah. I don't know how long that model lasts for. I think like companies are built off of like long-term discipline, I feel like, of just like doing the same thing well over like 10 years. So I don't know. I feel
like would
if-
you wouldn't rage bait?
No, for sure not. Like, I think if you're trying to build something serious, like you have to be serious from the start.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of gotten out of hand because this one founder tried to rage bait like Cluely. And so he like posts this email screenshot that says, it's like some founder that's like, I want to get into your Series A. My LPs keep asking about it. Here's a term sheet. And then everyone like clearly calls him out and is like, first of all, they'll never send a term sheet on their first cold reach out. And second, their LPs are not worried about it. And everyone's just like, what the fuck is this rage baiting now? Like Cluely does it once and it's like now this hot thing that everyone's trying to do.
But that's like the point of rage baiting is like exactly how everyone responded to that. Cause like I saw that too, but it's like someone retweeted it and then they comment on it and then that gets like even more.
But I think it's just like, I think Cluely did it a little bit more tasteful. Like I think this is clearly just like cringe.
I don't think they really did it that much more tastefully. They just posted getting like a lap dance in the office. Like how much more tasteful is that? I don't know.
Wait, they posted getting a lap dance in the
Yeah.
office?
I don't know if it was like actually what was going on, but that was like
I did
clearly
not
other.
know that.
They're not like trying to be tasteful, I don't think. I feel like it's an interesting conversation though, because like we obviously have conversations about it, but it's like hard to build a following on social media without like bait.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
algorithms have gotten so competitive or like saturated.
I feel like it does make you rethink a lot of things. Like I think sometimes when we go on TikTok, we're like, we have to talk about this a certain way, or like maybe we shouldn't go too in depth on this because it's too complex, and then you'll lose like the attention of the audience. And
Yeah.
so it really is like a game in a way of
Yeah.
like how you can get people.
Yeah. But I think like if you have a really good product and the people who use it like really love it, I think like that's like the only way to grow pretty much, unless you're selling to like these massive enterprises who then like push it down onto their company. I think, but for us, like I think there's like 2 main models. Like I think those are like the 2 main ones. You either have like pure like PLG and like you're just trying to get like, you know, people onto your product that love it and use it and like share it within their organization.
Yeah.
Or you have this like massive like enterprise sales engine that just goes and sells to like massive companies, and you have like, you know, these experienced salespeople and like this whole go-to-market function and everything that, you know. So I think both things are like equally valid. It just depends on what kind of a founder you are. And that's like good advice that I got. Like for instance, we're friends with like James from Post Hog. And so I was talking to him last week for like an hour, and he was like, you can basically do 2 things, but you have to decide early on what kind of a company you want to be. Do you want to be the company that goes in, gets like $1 million, $2 million a year contract, and then just like builds agents for them and just like does like cost savings and does like, you know, all these different things? Or are you the company that's just like purely like pushing everyone to the cloud. You don't really engage with them so much. You just like grow with your customer. So you start with startups, and then like as they use it more, it just like, you know, you grow with them. Like one is like the Palantir type of approach, and the other one is like, I would say post hog, but like a lot more like Stripe and other people are like really famous at it.
Like Stripe's, their first big contract was DoorDash, right? And then they like grew with DoorDash over time.
Yeah. So yeah, that's true. And it's actually like a famous YC story where they called it the Collison install, where you would have to like inject some script in your code base, like in order to accept payments on their platform. And so what the Carlson brothers would do in YC is they would talk to their batchmates and they'd be like, hey, are you accepting payments on the line? And they're like, yeah. And they're like, okay, like let me install it for you on your computer. So they would literally just go into the person's code base, like open up their laptop and literally install Stripe for them. So it was called the Collison install, and it's even still today called the Collison install of like, you go into your customer like in their product and like install your own thing to like work for them. And that's actually been like something we do all the time for people. Is like when someone needs an agent for like whatever their workflow, we just build it for them, like and then deploy it for them, and just give it to them for free.
What is it? Inertia to start is like really tough to get past.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, you're starting at zero, and then they have to read through your docs, and they have to figure out a whole bunch of stuff.
They never read.
Yeah. Especially now. I mean, imagine back then, but especially now, you're just putting it in cursor, and if it's not indexed on it, then like good luck.
No, that makes sense. I guess to go a little more into your YC experience, how would you say that was like applying to it, being a part of it? Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, it was definitely life-changing, I would say. I was a big YC skeptic before I started. I had seen on Twitter a lot of these things that was like, YC changed my life. And it's like all these like founders of like companies that everyone's heard about. And I'm like, there's no way this guy's attributing all his success to YC. It just kind of doesn't make sense. And I thought it was more for like the Twitter community, like, oh, I love YC. But the first 3 days of YC like were actually life-changing when I heard all those stories. And the one that really did it for me was Brian Chesky's talk. But he basically gave a 3-hour monologue of like how he was broke. First of all, he went to design school in RISD. He was not a developer. He moved to LA. He was like designing toilets on like some famous TV show. Then he moved to SF, slept on the couch of like his friend. And there was a design conference. So they held these like air mattresses. I won't retell the whole story, but like long story short, it got from there. He was like $50,000 and then like credit card debt, all this stuff. And then that became Airbnb. And so it's like, what we realize is like, you don't have to have any sort of experience, any like significant background. You don't have to be special in any way whatsoever. You just have to have faith. And if you just like put your faith into like, I don't know what you're doing and just really be disciplined for the long run, like you can be successful. And I think that mentality, like I had always believed it, but like hearing it firsthand from someone who was there and then had done that, like we're all way more successful than he was at that time. I think he was like 27 or something. So it's like, when you think about it from that perspective of like where he was and then where they are now, it's like, why can't I do that too? I'm even in a better position. So I like actually should have a better chance of doing it. Right. So it's just like remaining disciplined and having that mindset.
Yeah. It's so interesting because I was talking to a few of my friends like 3 or 4 days ago about like politics and how like there's a lot of people with like no political experience that have like become electable. And then one of our friends was like, I might like run for Congress. And at first I was like, why would you do that? You have like no background. And we were just like talking about how like Trump or like even other, like on both sides of the aisle, there's like people that have had no political experience and then they've gotten elected. And we were like, oh, like you really can just do like whatever you want to do. A lot of it is just about like outworking people. Like regardless of the field. Or like being more disciplined or like finding the right people to like do it with, I guess. But and
I feel like getting the right people as your mentors and like the people you get advice from and talk to, because like I feel like even if you know nothing, if you know who to talk to in each of those areas, like you can get the best advice.
Well, I feel like you have to want it to actually want it and not for like the show of it, kind of what you were saying earlier. Like the Stanford kids or whatever, like you can't, like, I'm sure the people who are successful aren't like, oh, I want to be in YC. It's like, no, I want to build this product.
One of my favorite quotes is like, it takes 10 years to become an overnight success. So like you guys might experience this, but it's like you're working on something for 5 years and there's like no traction. And then all of a sudden it's like the biggest thing ever. And then people are like, oh, you just showed up yesterday. Well, it's like, I've been doing this for 10 years. You know what I'm saying? Like we got rated by MI6 in like 2016. And it's 2025 and I'm still here and like we're still nothing, you know what I'm saying? But you have to love it. And so I think And the YC community is the best I've ever experienced in my life. I remember coming into YC and like people were on Slack and they were like, hey, like I love your product, but like here's like some things that you should improve with it. And they would literally send me like a list of things like, here's like what I think you should like do better.
Yeah.
And that's like the best people to get product feedback from also.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they were using it, you know, all the time for their own applications. And like YC people, it's really cool. Like I got hit up from founders who were like way older and had way more successful companies. And they were like, hey, we were looking for a solution and we were looking at your competitors, but none of them were in YC, and we're going to go with you because you're a YC company.
Yeah.
Like that actually happens
No
like more
way.
often than not. Like YC people actually stick together. Like, I don't know, like it's
And
actually,
there's a lot.
It's like your next college network, but like.
oh
cooler.
yeah, it's like,
I feel like people always say that like
Yeah.
about like, even like about Brex. I feel like
Yeah.
people say that all the time. Like every YC company uses, or like a lot of them use Brex.
Are you a Brex or a Ramp user?
oh, I love Brex.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You don't like Ramp?
Brex is, so Brex is actually kind of funny because I heard crazy stories. Like people went to like 3 Michelin star dinners, like multiple nights in a row.
Just so that you can.
yeah,
get
just so like they can get
their
Brex.
Just
and
sound
Brex.
like you're
Yeah.
not sure. It's like course
Yeah.
number 28, and you're like, yeah, I'm like pretty convinced, but not all the way there
Yeah.
yet. What are you doing tomorrow?
And like Warriors tickets or like they'll get
Warriors
you anything.
tickets are
No
classic.
way. So wait,
Yeah.
what did you get?
We didn't do anything actually.
You were like, yeah, we'll sign up.
Yeah,
You were like the nice guys.
Yeah, well, this is actually after you sign up.
Okay.
So this is like to make sure that that you get the benefits.
They're
of-
upselling.
Yeah, I was like, we don't have time to like go to dinners and stuff. But
That's
maybe
why you guys raised the seed before demo day. You weren't at the Warriors game.
everyone was too busy at Michelin star dinners.
Secretly bringing down the class.
Yeah, I was like, so actually like the rep reached out to me, and I was gonna just go. I thought she was so nice. I was gonna go for coffee and buy her coffee. And I didn't realize, like, I talked to my batchmates and they're like, no, dude, you go to Michelin star dinners with them, like all this stuff. I was like, oh shoot, I didn't know that was what's going on.
That is so funny. That's so funny.
Yeah.
I feel like we should end on like one closing question then.
Okay.
I guess I'm curious, like I know you talk a lot about like thought leadership on X. Like, so where do you see Sims Studio in 10 years?
Yeah, I think our goal is really to be the platform on which all AI agents are built on top of. So by making it the easiest way to put your agents in production, we want to just be the default of, I need to build an AI agent for my application. I'm going to go to Sim Studio and build it. And so that's like where we want to be the default. Like if you want to design something, you go to Figma. If you want to build an agent, you go to Sim Studio. You know, if you want to search something up, maybe there's like 3, I don't know, ChatGPT,
Yeah.
Google and Perplexity, but
I guess, do you like believe in the future that like agents will like build themselves?
oh yeah, 100%.
Okay.
Yeah, that's definitely coming, like faster than people expect it to be. So that's actually where Sim Studio, the name, came from. It was like, you're going to build 10,000 agents that do the exact same thing. And then it's just going to pick like the few most successful ones, like 1 to 10 of them.
Oh, okay. Oh, so is that coming? Like, are you gonna like write a prompt? 10 will be created. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it'll be pretty exciting. Yeah, like agents running in the background, agents like self-improving.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, the whole thing will be like, today it's like mostly agent workflows. It's like things that are deterministic. But where we're going is definitely like self-improving agents. And this is kind of like a crazy thought. But something we're saying is like AGI is actually more likely to be built in Sim Studio than by like a pre-trained model.
Wait, what? Why?
So, and if you think about it, like,
This is the Delulu in him.
yeah, like if you think about it, like it takes a lot more work to train a massive model. Like how you scale like between like GPT-4 and GPT-5 and GPT-6, like the amount of energy and like resources required to like increase the model's capabilities requires way more work than just having a like connected system of agents. That's sort of like this hive mind system where each agent is like communicating between each other.
Like how does it connect to AGI?
Like basically, if AGI is this like super intelligence, you can gain just like massive improvements over the model by having multiple agents that focus on like different things and just talk to each other. In the same way, if you're in a room with like smart people,
Yeah.
right? Like if we're all sitting with each other, we probably will come up with a better idea than like any one of us individually because we can talk to each other about it and like refine our idea. And so that's sort of the same idea with agents, is like you can have one really smart agent, which is like Einstein, or you can have like 5 Einsteins in a room that all talk to each other. The one that's going to feel more like AGI are like the people in a room with each other.
But I feel like, isn't that like the case for like ASI? But like, for example, if you have like 10 babies in the room talk to each other, like the 10 babies aren't going to come out with like a correct answer. And you could like maybe say that like each individual baby is like the current state of like what GPT-4o is at, which I would say is probably like an elementary school kid, or maybe even better in certain cases, depending on the domain. I guess, like, what would you say to that?
Yeah, I would say, well, there's a concept in machine learning that basically says that if you have a number of dummy learners that are like on average less smart than like one individual learner, they're always going to improve. They're always going to give a more accurate score or like solution or answer than like the one smarter model. I think it's the same with like LLMs. If you have like even dumber models that are just like communicating with each other, they'll come up with a better answer than just like one really smart model.
Yeah. Are you close to AGI then?
Honestly,
have you guys tried something?
Yeah, like I think we have some pretty interesting stuff. So yeah, we'll see in like 20 months.
Tune back in a
might
couple
have to
months.
do another pod post the AGI release.
I know. I'm like, wait, did we just talk to the creator of AGI? Who knows? Who knows?
Yeah.
Cool.
We'll
Well,
see,
thank
we'll
you
see.
so much
Thank you
for
so
coming
much.
Yeah, thanks for
on.
having me. Yeah, I
Yeah,
appreciate
this was
it.
so fun.
Yeah, no, this was super fun.